Bonjour mes amis, et bienvenue au Pendu dans la Lune. Hello friends, if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you probably recognize that this is my series in which I use Tarot de Marseille or antique Italian decks to answer questions that I pull from my larger weekly Rider-Waite-Smith-based spread, which dives into topics related to living the intentional life. Let me explain that in actual English. So, once a week, I do a large spread using Rider-Waite-Smith tarot decks and oracle decks to explore topics related to living the intentional life. And after I do that reading, I pull a question out of that, an extra question, something that I'm curious about after that reading, and then I use Tarot de Marseille or antique Italian decks to answer that question in a shorter 3-card spread. So I've already done the larger spread for this week. I think I titled it Fly to be Free, and if you're curious about that and you want to go see that larger reading for this week, then I'll put a card above me so you can hop over there. So I read that and I pulled a question for this week. And the question for this week was, how do we move from being trapped in negative thoughts to being open to receiving new ideas and perspectives? Now, it's a long question, right? I'll read it again. How do we move from being trapped in negative thoughts to being open to receiving new ideas and perspectives? Now, in the larger reading, it was a general discussion of being open to moving forward and open to receiving new life, open to receiving success. That was the general theme for the larger spread. And part of that was showing us that oftentimes we trap ourselves in negative thoughts. And what we want to do is move forward with new thoughts. And so that's where I got this question. So let me show you the answer that I got from my Tarot de Marseille deck. And I'll also show you the question in written form. It's probably easier that way. Here they are. So, you saw the question, you saw the cards that were in response to that question, and I was a little bit disappointed in the cards that I drew because what deck is this? I'm sorry to say, this is a very out of print deck. Now this is a very, very out of print deck. You can find copies on Etsy, not Etsy, on eBay, but they're a little bit pricey. It's the Vanderborre Tarot, otherwise known as the Vanderborre Baccus Tarot. It was created in Brussels, in Belgium, in 1780. The original deck. This is not the original deck. The original deck was created in 1780. This was a reprint done by, I believe, Grimaud. Again, it's way out of print. However, there is a print-on-demand copy of this deck that I know of that looks really good, and I'm actually planning on getting that one sometime when I have the cash. And I'll put a link in the description box below. It's a little bit pricey too, I believe, but it's not nearly as pricey as trying to get an out-of-print deck from Grimaud. Yeah. So I'll put a copy below. Now, the special thing about this deck is that instead of the Pope and Popess, we have them replaced by Bacchus for the Pope and the Spanish captain for the Popess. So I kind of hoped that one or both of them might show up in this reading, but they didn't, and so that's okay, isn't it? But still, this is a gorgeous deck. It's a beautiful little deck, and I love the border around the deck. That's part of the original. Now, the border around this deck is so interesting. It's so fresh and new. And the three cards that we got in response were also a little bit of a surprise, considering the question. But I think I have a grasp of where and how to read this. So we have three cards. The Chevalier de Denier, yeah, the Knight of Coin, the Reine d'Épée, the Queen of Swords, and the Ten of Épée. I'm sorry, I'm not going to try that in French. The Ten of Swords. Now, this question was about mind, yeah, thoughts, negative thoughts to new perspectives, to new ideas. So having swords show up, having épée show up makes sense, right? So, but starting off with the coin, with the material realm, with money or health, was a little bit of a surprise to me. And the Chevalier de Denier, the Knight of Coins, for me, is a knight of efficiency and of methodical work. This is the knight that does the tasks one step at a time. This knight doesn't ride their horse at a full run or even a gallop or even a trot. This knight walks their horse and takes one step at a time. It's the card of responsibility. Yeah? Riding responsibly. Sometimes taking challenges, sure. This knight will take challenges, but they won't ride off in a hasty challenge, yeah? Won't leap off of a hill or a cliff or leap over things. This knight will take a challenge, but will approach the challenge very methodically. This knight also has, what do we see? Well, let me describe the card just briefly. What do we see? We see this knight on a very, very stout looking horse. Yeah? The pentacle is above the knight's line of sight. The knight is focused on that pentacle, but not touching it, right? The pentacle isn't in the knight's grasp. The pentacle, I'm sorry. The coin, Rider-Waite-Smith tradition. The coin is not in the knight's grasp, but in front of them, yeah? The knight is following the coin, we can imagine. So this is also a card for assets to create new purpose beyond the material. Now, assets, it can be financial, but material assets. We have the resources to create something beyond the material realm. Productive expression of creativity could be another meaning for this card. And also having a clear goal in sight. You see this knight has a clear goal in sight. It's right there in front of the knight's face, right? That coin is right there. A clear goal in sight. Now, I don't particularly like goals, personally. Instead of goals, I prefer thinking of directions and manifestations. Instead of goal setting, I prefer thinking of my path. That includes manifestations along the way, but there's no end point to these lives that we're living. There's no death, in truth. Our lives continue in different forms, in different bodies, in different expressions, but there's no end point goal to life. So instead of having a clear goal in sight, having a clear direction, a clear aim perhaps. So how does this card begin answering our question? I think when we do feel trapped in our thoughts, in our negative thoughts, perhaps the first thing we want to do is get down to work. Yeah? We want to get down to work and focus on what is in front of us instead of the worries, the fears, the negative criticisms that we create for ourselves. To liberate ourselves from our thoughts, first, we perhaps want to focus on what's in front of us. The daily tasks we can be focusing on. Methodical work, doing the jobs. taking on challenges, but again, not leaping into the unknown, not rushing forward, but taking on a challenge. I don't want to say rationally, but methodically. So, I'm going to do this new thing, and I'm going to do this first, and then I'm going to do that next, and then I'm going to do that next. I'm going to take the steps. And remembering that our purpose is in the material, but it's also beyond the material, can also be a good reminder for us. Because a lot of times I think our worries and our fears and our anxieties and our negative thoughts are about what we imagine this material experience we're having is going to become in 1 minute, in 5 years, in 10 years, next week, whatever. We're afraid things are going to get worse, and we worry. We think we're not good enough to be able to do what we have to do, for example. Do you ever feel that? Do you feel yourself having all these negative thoughts about you in the world and your relationship to it? So one way to free ourselves from those thoughts is to, instead of imagining and judging what will happen and what will be, focusing on what's right here and right now, and remembering that what's right here and right now is going to lead us beyond the material. And then, as we work with and we focus on what is here right now and the direction that we're going, not what's down there in the future, but what the direction we're going right here at this moment. That's why I'm not saying goal. It's the direction we're going at this moment. We've got that coin right in front of our eyes. We know which direction we want to go because we know what the next task is going to be. Or we decide what the next task is going to be. And we can always change our minds. But we know what the next task is going to be, so we know the direction we're going to go in. Just the next task: wash the dishes, sweep the floor, rake leaves. Whatever the task is, focus on that. Remembering that that is what is going to lead us beyond the momentary physical manifestation and reality that we're experiencing. That's going to keep us on track, following our North Star perhaps even. Now, this knight is looking off to the left. And the next card is the Queen of Swords, looking off to the right. This is my right. I don't know if that's right to you, but it's my right. And the Queen of Swords, she is the card. Now, she, he, they. Now, the Queen, non-gendered Queen, is looking to the right and also looking at their sword, the Queen's sword. Just like the knight was looking at the knight's coin, the Queen is focused on the Queen's sword, the air, the mind. The Queen is reflecting on the Queen's mind. And who is the Queen of Swords? The Queen is the card of perspective, clear-mindedness. It's a card of a powerful intellect used for effective ideas and being open to new ideas. So first, the Queen is able to raise the Queen's sword and cut away those clouds that are surrounding, to be able to open up to new ideas and new perspectives. And so, though these cards are facing in opposite directions, I don't think they are antagonistic to each other. Now, I think the Queen of Swords has the Knight of Coin at their back. Now, the Queen is launching off from, focusing on the daily tasks, focusing on what is here right at this moment, the here and now. What am I doing right now? And then is able to open to the new ideas, to the new perspectives. The Queen of Swords is the independent thinker to me. This is the card of someone who isn't necessarily leading other people, but is able to share their ideas and share their perspectives with others. And maybe swat them into line if they need to be swatted into line. This queen is a queen. This queen has regal power as well. But this queen is one of independent thought. And again, perspective, clear-mindedness. And this queen is looking at their sword and the Ten of Swords. And the Ten of Swords is the last card in the suit, and it's about to burst into another suit or burst into the beginning of their own suit again. Yeah, it could be your cycle back to the Ace of Swords, which is actually the direction we want to go in. Yeah, this question is leading us back into the Ace of Swords. So we've got the Queen looking at the Ten of Swords, which is that point of transition back into the Ace of Swords. Expanded perspective. Acquiring a complete picture of reality. Thoughts no longer a prisoner of self. What does that mean? A lot of the time, we identify with our thoughts. Do you ever identify with your thoughts? What does that mean to you? Identifying with your thoughts. That means, to me, that when I think a thing, I am that thing. For example, I think I am perhaps stupid. So, because I have that thought, I must be stupid. Or, I think I am not creative. And because I have that thought, and I'm attached to that thought, I must be not creative. Or, on the other side, I think I am the most brilliant person in the world. And because I think that thought, and I'm attached to that thought, I must, according to myself, be the most brilliant person in the world. Have you ever met people who thought that way? I'm sure you've at least seen them on TV, if not in your everyday life. We get attached to these thoughts about ourselves, about other people, about situations, about how things are supposed to be, and we get so attached to them that we think that if that thought is affected, I am somehow wounded. Changing that thought means that I have to become something new or different or less than or greater than. Instead of realizing that the thought is the thought. That's all it is. It's just a thought. And it is something that I am experiencing. I am experiencing the thought, but it is not me. I am not the thought. The thought is the thought. That's all it is. And the Ten of Swords reminds us that we have the ability to distance ourselves from our thoughts. Now, to move beyond the idea of that thought being somehow part of me. So, thoughts no longer a prisoner of self, and self no longer being a prisoner of thoughts, which is the beginning of the question. How do I free myself from negative thoughts with the Ten of Swords? It's also the card of affectivity in mental life, which means emotions and thoughts blending together, merging together, not in the sense that one becomes the other, but that they can integrate and work together. Instead of one being a reaction of the other, yeah, they can blend together and coexist and work together. My thoughts can help raise my emotions. My emotions can help raise my thoughts. And they can help support each other in growth and development, in openness. It's also maturity. Yeah, we've reached a whole succession, the end of a whole succession of development from the ace through all the number cards to the tens. Yeah, so we've reached a certain level of maturity in thought. Now, it's not an ultimate maturity. The most mature person you know now still has more things to learn, more ways to grow in this life, in another life. But we achieve a certain level of maturity with the tens. And harmony with the heart. Our minds and our hearts are harmonious. Now, you see that this card is completely full of swords, right? There's no room for anything else. However, though this card is full of swords, for me, it's full of swords because it's the maturity, the ripeness of thought. It's not containing anything else. It's not blocking anything else. It is just the fullness of itself. And it's the fullness of itself, ready to transform itself, ready to move through the transition of being the singular again, being the ace of swords again. So, what do we have? Again, answering the question, how do we free ourselves from negative thoughts to be open to receiving new ideas and perspectives? First, focus on what we're doing, where we are, what is here, what is the task at hand, and letting that lead us in the direction we want to be moving in. And as we do that, we take up our sword of the Queen of Swords and clear our perspective, allow our mind to clear itself, which we can do if we're focusing on the task at hand, rather than worrying about the next one, or what's out there that we can't control, or our own worthiness or unworthiness, or all of those negative thought possibilities that are there for us. Now we take up our Queen of Swords card and we clear the air, which means clear the mind. Not aggressively, but like dispelling clouds. And become open to new ideas. And fulfill our 10 of Swords ness. Fulfill our recognition of our maturity in thought. That we have learned a lot, we have thought a lot up to this point, and we don't have to identify with those thoughts. We don't have to make those thoughts be descriptors of who we actually are. They are just our thoughts. They are creations. They are things we have experienced and experience. And we're now ready to move into the Ace of Swords. Keep wanting to say wands, the Ace of Swords, of expanded, of new perspective, of new ideas, of freshness, a kind of reincarnation or revitalization or renewal, which is one of the cards from the larger spread, yeah? That renewal of new life, from being open. Yeah, so the Queen mentally opens us up and we realize that we have grown. We realize that our emotional state and our intellectual state, our mental state, are affect each other, that we've grown a lot, that we don't have to identify with those thoughts or those emotions. And yet, we can now move on to the new thought and the new idea. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments below. So friends, what do you think? Really, let me know. Hit the like button if you're still here and watching and this has been meaningful for you. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and hit the alarm bell so you get notifications of when I do upload videos. I try to do 2 a week now. A large tarot spread and this smaller one. And share this with anyone who you think might get benefit from this. Yeah, move it to another platform if you like. And comment below. I really would love to hear from you. Again, there will be a link if you want to check out another version of another reprinting of this deck from Cartomancer. That link will be below. And if you're interested in a reading from me, there will be a link to my Instagram account, and you can go to my Instagram account and message me, and we'll work out a way to do a reading for you. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.